Hey guys, welcome back to the 8th video in my Python programming series. Today we're going to be talking about lists. Now lists can be fairly complex, but they are a very important part of Python and they are very important to understand. So a list is another data type. So before we talked about strings, integers, booleans, and floating decimal points, so floats. And today we're going to talk about lists. So lists again are their own data type. So let's just start off by doing an example right now. So pretty much a list, which is denoted by the square brackets here, is a collection of different data types. It could be the same data types or it can be different data types. So for an example, I'm going to put a apple in here in my list. I'm going to put a comma and I'm going to add another item. So maybe we'll put a pear and then maybe we'll put a number as well. Okay, so we have the list fruits. And in the list, we have 3 items. Now, everything here separated by a comma is known as an item. So for an example, our apple is an item, our pear is an item, and the integer 3 is an item. Now, you can see that they're all different data types, or sorry, there is different data types. We have 2 strings and we have 1 integer value. Now, this is fine. You can store different data types in one list. Okay, so now let's just print the list to the console so we can see what it looks like. Print it out, and you'll see we simply get exactly what we've typed into the IDLE. So we get apple, pear, and 3. Now, if we want to access an individual item in the list, we need to do something a little different. So right now we just printed out the whole list, but say we want to just print out pear. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the square brackets. So we're going to do the list name, so fruits, and then we're going to put square brackets right beside it, no spaces, and then inside of the square brackets we're going to type in what's known as the indice of that item. So the way indices work in Python is when you create a list, everything is automatically assigned an indice. So in this list we have indices 0 through 2. Now, it may seem weird that we start at 0 instead of 1, but that's just the way that computers count and the way that they work. So we have to understand that apple is going to be assigned the integer value of 0, so the indice 0, meaning I would put 0 in here if I wanted to access apple, because that's the first element in our list. And then we have pear, so that's the second element or item. Now that's actually going to be represented by 1 here. So fruits 1 will give us the value of pear, and then fruits 2 will give us the value of 3. Now this is sometimes difficult for some people to understand, but just really try to remember that the first item always is 0. So if you would like to access the second item in your list, you're going to type in 1 into the indice thing here. Okay, so I'm just going to run this and show you how this works. And you see we get pear. Okay, that's because we have the first indice, which represents the second item, which is pear. Okay, now there's some other things we can do with lists as well. So if we want to add something to our list, there's a few ways that we can do it. The first way, which is the only one I'm going to show you right now, is probably the easiest, and simply what we're going to type is fruits followed by the dot. So a dot, a period, and then we're going to type append. Okay, now this means to add to the end of the list. So inside of append, I'm going to put the element or the item that I'd like to add. So say we want to add another fruit. Let's think of another fruit that we could add, maybe a strawberry. Okay, we want to add strawberry into the list. I'm just going to get rid of 3 so it makes more sense. Okay, so right now in our list up here we have fruits, which is a variable name containing the list that has apple and pear. Now we want to add strawberry to the list. So let's start off by printing the list before we add it. So we'll print off fruits, and then we're going to print fruits one more time after we add this item to the list. And you see we have the first list, which is what we defined originally, and then when we added or appended strawberry to the end of it, it added it in just like this. So that is a way that we are able to add things into a list by using .append. Now there is another way, it's known as the slice operator using something called insert, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to talk about the slice operator in a later tutorial, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so fruits.append, we've added strawberry. Now if we wanted to add another item, we could do the same thing, and we could do append again, and we could put in another fruit. Maybe we want to put in a blueberry. Okay, just like that. And again, we'll see that it does the same thing. We have apple, pear, and then apple, pear, strawberry, blueberry. Okay. All right, so that's it for adding to the list. Now, what about changing something in our list? So let's just add right here at the beginning. We'll put in strawberry. So we have 3 items. And now let's say we want to change the middle item in our list to a different fruit. Say we don't like pears, we want to remove it, we want to change that. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to type the name again, so fruits, followed by the square brackets, and then the indice of the item you want to change. So again, remember, if we want to change pear, we're going to use the indice 1, not 2, because this is the way that it works. We're going to use 1. And then we're going to change it to whatever we'd like to change it to. So say I want to change it to blueberry, I can do that like so. And then again, we can print out fruits, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so we get apple, blueberry, and strawberry. That's because we've changed the item at indice 1 into blueberry, and we've replaced that. We replaced pear with blueberry, pretty much. Okay, so that's how that works for a list, for changing items. Again, lists are very useful for storing large amounts of information. So this is a very small list, but in many programs we use something called multi-dimensional lists, which I'm going to talk about again in another tutorial. And yeah, so one more thing before we end it here. There's another data type called a tuple. So a tuple, it's kind of a hard word to pronounce, but it's used for coordinates, and it's also used for things like colors and rectangles. It can also be used just to hold information as well, but it's a different type of data type than a list, so we're going to talk about it quickly. Okay, so a tuple pretty much looks like this. So if we set a position, and we set it equal to something like this, not in square brackets, in the regular round brackets, and then we simply put the items in like this. Now we see we get it looks very similar to a list, the way that it works. Again, we can use different data types, so I could put something like hello in here as well. But it does function a little differently. And again, things like colors, we would also store in a tuple. So we would use like 255, 255, 255. That's simply white in red, green, blue colors. And again, if we print out the type of the color, you can see that we get a class tuple. Okay, so I'm not going to go too in depth with the tuples here. I just wanted you to understand what they are, because we may be using them in some later tutorials. Okay, so I hope you learned how to use lists and a little bit about tuples today. They're going to be important in the next tutorial. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.